Welcome, welcome.
Hi.
How you doing today?
All right. How are you?
I'm doing good. We'll probably get started at like oh 05. So feel free to, get settled, grab some lunch if you need to. And we'll get started in 5, 6 minutes.
Sounds fine. Thanks.
Great. All right, we'll get started in like 2 minutes or so. All right, I think we can get started. Welcome and thanks again for joining another Fundraising Friday session. This week we'll be going over technology and organizational sustainability. My name is Kafili Thomas, he, him pronouns. I am the Director of Program Learning here at Progressive Multiplier Fund. And this is the rest of the team, Violetta, Bethany, Lucas, Valeria, and Polly. Really excited to cover this topic today, especially as we head into end of year fundraising. Technology is something that can be a big boost to your organization. So happy to go over some of the tools that I use and suggest for consulting clients that I've had in the past, organizations that I've worked for in the past, and also leave some space to ask some questions on how you can use tech to help sustain and grow your organization financially through fundraising, but also programmatically as well. A little bit more about who Progressive Multiplier is as an organization. We are a funding intermediary, and our goals are to help organizations build a progressive movement of, by, and for everyday people. And we do this by organizing and leveraging funding to create on-ramps for progressive organizations to start, strengthen, or scale individual giving and earned revenue programs. Through both an online community of practice and our grant making and support program, we build the progressive sector's revenue generation knowledge and skills so that it can amplify a people-powered movement. What that means, all in all, is as a funding intermediary, what we do is pool money together and distribute funds and knowledge to organizations like yourself to give you the chance to build independent revenue generation. So any money that's being raised from individuals or from your community. We have an online community of practice in which you're being a part of right now through Fundraising Fridays. And we also provide grants and do strategic assistance support as well for grantees. And our goal is to help build not only the resources that organizations have, but the knowledge and skills so that they're able to make more sustainable organizations. We have three main buckets of work and areas that we work in: achieving justice, realizing democracy, and restoring the environment. And we view our role in the space as growing the revenue generation capacity of groups who work on these focus areas. And through doing that, we can affect government, industries, and courts that make decisions that affect widespread change. And we do this work on the C3, C4, and 528 side. And we believe this is the most efficient path to building and sustaining progressive power. Wanted to give a shout out again to our amazing partners at Resilience Initiative for helping to put together Fundraising Fridays. For folks who are joining, please feel free to introduce yourself in the chat if you haven't done so. Your name, your organization that you're calling from, and your role. Session is all of our Fundraising Fridays is being recorded and will be on the private YouTube channel. The bit.ly is right there, but I'll make sure to save it so everyone has access to it later on. So a little bit more about what we are offering through the Fundraising Friday partnership with Resilience Initiative. Obviously, we have these training sessions in the dual track format. So 101 track is building on fundraising fundamentals. The 201 track is looking at current trends and next level topics. And a lot of the topics were picked and designed by you all. So trying to remain responsive to the needs that are emerging within your organizations. In addition to that, you all have access to 1 to 5 hours of individual coaching, consulting, or deliverable preparation by either myself or some of my colleagues. there's a list right there of some things that we have done in the past to help support organizations, fundraising trainings for boards, development plans, end of year campaign planning, et cetera, et cetera. So if that's something that interests you, especially as you're heading into end of year, you would like maybe somebody to do with outside eyes to take a look at what you're proposing to run for your end of year campaign, look at materials, whatever the case may be. You can definitely reach out to get signed up for that. So please, I will share the link again at the end of the presentation, but reach out to either Michelle Mingle at Resilience Initiative, or you can reach out directly to myself and get some time scheduled on the calendar. And again, if you missed any past sessions, you want to go back to past sessions to share with colleagues, teammates, whoever, they can be accessed on our private YouTube channel, and the bit.ly is right there to Fundraising Friday. Great. So some topics that we're going to cover today, we'll talk about why systems are important. So figuring out what systems like truly are for our organizations and our work, and how tech intersects with that. Tech and scaling, so how technology can help you as an organization get to where you want to go. The legs of the stool, which are what are the pillars of your organization and what tech tools would you use to help support that from a fundraising standpoint. And then we'll also go over some suggestions and tools of things that I've seen in the field that have been effective for groups that I've worked for, groups that I've consulted with, and can give a little bit of advice on that. Also would love to hear from you all tools that you're using that you really love. Always eager to help build a repository for folks. So if there are no questions, let's jump in. And we'll start by talking about why systems are important and how they're critical to organizational health. So a saying that I really like, and if you've been in my trainings before, you've probably heard me say, is that you rise to the level of your people, but fall to the levels of your systems. So, you can have amazing folks on staff who do incredible work, and you can take for granted their ability to work maybe through chaos, maybe in things that aren't regimented, but that leaves your organization incredibly susceptible to future issues. So what's really important is that you invest in systems even when it doesn't seem like you need to and things are working well, because you want to maintain a level of standard across your organization and give yourself a chance to scale. Even the best employee only has 40 hours in the week. And so, how do you maximize their time, efficiency, and impact if you don't give them tools and things to help amplify their effectiveness? So for your org to grow, you're going to need the supportive systems in general across the board. And technology is a really great way to, as I said, really amplify the effectiveness of the folks who are on your team and who are doing the work, and be able to provide what they're currently doing now at a larger scale. So wanted to open it up here and just hear from you all where your organization has adopted some standardized systems and ways of doing things. And also, are you coming to this training with maybe a level of technology aversion or apprehension? And it could be not only just you, but your org as a whole. Technology can be intimidating for folks. So just want to get a general sense of how comfortable people feel, and maybe some of the steps that they've taken so far to implement technology in their work.
Hi, I'm Amelia, and I'm with a small agricultural producer focused organization in Louisiana. It's called Sprout. And we are pretty small. We're like new to I'm building a lot of systems. We don't use technology for much in our fundraising world. I'm trying to create systems for grant reporting, which feel like a combination of spreadsheets and calendars and reminders, and it's still a little bit complex. So that's like the highest need. And I'm also getting more into CRM software, and this like database management is something that's also a need for us. So far, also very simple spreadsheet based, but we're looking into different platforms and potentially a Salesforce thing built for us. That's where we're at.
Great, fabulous. Thanks for sharing, Amelia. Yeah, that's a very natural stage of development for organizations to be in, especially if they're smaller and newer. Maybe spreadsheets have sufficed for a while, but you're looking to do something more robust and go beyond that. And so we'll have some examples later on in the presentation of different options that you may have for each one of those needs that you've highlighted. But yeah, we'll also have some Q&A time at the end, so happy to do a little bit more of a deep dive on maybe your organization's particular situation, especially because we don't have a super big group this week, so we can spend some time answering some individualized questions if you'd like.
Thanks, that's very helpful.
Great. How about you, Kirsten?
I'm sorry, I'm on my laptop, so I'm having a hard time unmuting. I'm interested in really hearing the conversation around what folks are doing and the different sizes of their organization. It's because we're in a lot of transition too.
Great. Yeah, we can definitely touch on some of that. Perfect.
Yeah, I feel like let me put a little more detail on that. We are being hit continuously with amazing new tools to increase the efficacy of our current CRM, and it's very interesting to watch the responses with the different segments of the organization and what the team members are looking to and how we can integrate all of the needs.
100%. Yeah, I think that that's something that a lot of orgs are struggling with too, is like there's been a boom in the nonprofit space around tech tools, and companies doing outreach, trying to get folks to sign up for different things. So part of the question is like, what do we actually need, and how do we solve that need? And who are the right folks to work with to do that? And what things maybe are, wants more than needs, and what things are maybe like superfluous or don't really apply to our work. So we can spend some time talking about how you would go about doing some of that decision-making process. Great. So as I said before, regardless of how incredible your employees and coworkers are, the concept of brain drain is real. The reason why we need systems is so that we can build a baseline and a standard of work, and be able to replicate results. What makes people truly great is their individual skills and talents, but we can't just rely on them being in our organization always. You can see it at any level of organization. You can have someone who's really incredible on data entry, and manages the database, and no one, because they know how to do it, no one else learns how to do it or bothers to ask how they do some of that stuff, and maybe they take a different job, and now that really robust, incredible database of information can't be used and quickly grows out of date because there's no one to manage it. Or you could look at it from the top down. Sometimes organizations have incredibly charismatic, great leadership, whether that's at the executive level, the board level, who hold a lot of relationships and who does a lot of the fundraising individually. If there's no knowledge base or tracking of the information or data behind them, what happens when that executive director leaves, or that board member leaves. All those connections, all that time built, you know, you're not going to be able to maximize on it in the future. So that's what we're really saying here. All the good work that your organization is doing now can be lost if you don't know how to replicate it. And so what you're really doing is stealing time and money and resources from yourself in the future, the longer that you wait to build systems and to invest in that now currently. And we are in a rapidly evolving technological age, but we can't let that scare us out of engaging with technology in ways that, you know, make us better at what we do, make us more efficient, make us better fundraisers, etc. You know, there are things that we just adopt as part of society. You know, we don't ride horses anymore. We don't write with feather pens anymore. You know, I am still old enough to remember payphones. I'm still old enough to remember phones with buttons, period, right? These are all giant changes that the world has gone through, but we adapt to them because it makes our life easier, makes our life better. And so we should think about this same mentality in the scope of our work. Our world is being shaped by technology, and so our choices really are to embrace it and figure out which technology works best for us, or potentially get left behind as an individual or as an organization. These are things that you should be investing in also for your own career edification and ability to remain competitive in the job market as well. So think of how to use systems or use technologies to systematize your work, to be able to share at scale, to be able to connect with more people than you have in the past. And so I really want to ground the relationship between technology and systems. So systems are the what and technology is the how. And this right here that I'm explaining is the why. So the reason why we invest in all of this, the time, the money, and the effort is we want to be able to provide for our constituency at scale. So whatever work that we're doing it for others. So we want to be able to help as many people as we can, and technology is a great way to help do that. We want to be able to make data-driven tweaks to our process. So not making decisions based on emotion, based on recent trends. We want to be able to have some historical precedent and data to make good decisions. We want to be able to grow at a faster rate organizationally. And we want to share information internally and externally in a more efficient manner. And technology will help us do all of those different things. Great. So let's talk about tech and scaling. How technology will unlock your ability to work bigger and better. Before I go forward, any questions on that last section? Nope, we all good? Okay.
I'm trying to make the hand raise work on this little computer, and it's not
Oh,
working.
no worries. Go ahead. You can, it's a really small group, so we can just jump off mute if you want to ask.
Okay. Well, you do know how I love to talk. So my question is, when you're talking about tech and scaling, are you talking about tech and scaling within the organization that you're currently in? I'm sorry, I just wanted to, I'm sure you're going to go into that, but also as we talk about tech and scaling, I can sit on my hands and wait for a little bit, but I'm wishing I had asked someone to sit in with me on this meeting. So thanks, Kapila.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, so we're talking about how to use this to like think about your current work and how to do that more efficiently. But I think that a lot of the principles and thought process behind learning how to use this technology is really transferable. Towards the end of the presentation, I will, provide some recommendations on some tools that I see based on certain areas of work that people are familiar with, but a lot of these tools are multi-purpose. So getting familiar with, a tool in one particular use case doesn't mean that that's the only use case that tool has. So you can continue to like develop your skills that I think will help travel with you throughout your career. So it doesn't have to only apply to your current role. Anything else? Okay, let's keep going. Right. Oh, Amelia, were you gonna ask a question? I just saw you.
Just thinking about it, I guess I was just I think I'm interested in fundraising and a finance overlap, like those kind of systems that can do both.
100%. Yeah, we'll be going into those tools specifically. And I think that especially in your situation with a smaller organization, you're going to want something that um you'll probably get the most bang for your buck. So you want things that either have really high integration with each other or like a more all-encompassing tool package where your fundraising and your budgeting work can exist essentially in one kind of universe and speak to each other. Great. So the first thing that we should do, when we're thinking about our technology and what we use internally, and what we want to do, because as I said before, there's a million different companies out there right now selling you a new tool or app to be more productive or to do this in a different way. Um, is the first thing that we should do is really take an audit of our current uses. So how do we connect internally and externally? Even from a fundraising perspective, how do we track our data and be able to map information to donors, to foundations? These are all things that help us tell stories and become more effective fundraisers. How do we do that currently internally? What tech tools do we use to do that type of work? And have we found any gaps? Do we feel successful that our needs are being met right now? Or are there other capabilities that may be beyond our knowledge base or beyond the technology's capabilities? So that's another thing to take into account. It's not always that you need a new tool or a different tool. Sometimes the tools you have that capability, you just don't know how to use them yet. So doing a little bit of research on like, if you wanted to do something more robust in, say, Salesforce or Razor's Edge or QuickBooks, like, is the question that QuickBooks can't do that or that you can't do that in QuickBooks, right? And so oftentimes there are cases where we can just find and seek out additional knowledge to be able to use the tools better. And that can be really helpful. And then the next thing that we want to do after we've done kind of our audit is to map our programming goals to our current capabilities. So we want to think, especially from a fundraising standpoint, right? Say we are organizationally in a growth phase, and traditionally we have only been funded by let's say institutional donors, right? And we feel pretty comfortable and confident on how we handle that, but we want to grow and expand into seeking out individual donors and doing an individual donor base. um can we currently do that now with all the technology, like right now? um or do we need new tools to be able to do that? And then in addition to the new tools to be able to do that, are we able to fulfill that workload internally with our current staff size, right? So if you're a development team of one, which I know many organizations are, do you have the capacity in your day, your week, your month, your year to run an individual giving campaign? So even if you bought the tech and went top of the line and spent X amount of dollars, would you be able to use that efficiently to actually build that individual giving base or not? Right? These are the decisions that we need to make smartly as an organization, to think of, with our limited resources, is this best invested in new technology and tools, or is it invested best in new people and new staff, or is it a mix of both? And so we need to be strategic in how we spend, to invest in our ability to scale and grow. One thing that I suggest folks do too is, even if you have a system that is tried and true, you've been using 5, 10 years, whatever the case may be, ask around, seek advice on what peer organizations are doing, what tools they use, what databases they use. If you see maybe a really amazing newsletter that a peer organization put out, reach out and say, hey, what did you create this on? Is this a tool that you don't currently have access to, or maybe they just have a really great graphic designer? If you're seeing multimedia content that's being created, by organizations that you know maybe are around your size and they don't have like a full comms team, how did you do that? Was that with a consultant? Is that with a tool, right? You should always be learning from your environment, because if you're not keeping up with what your peer organizations are doing, you're slowly and slowly going to fall, further and further behind. So feel free to attempt to solicit some advice and suggestions from others, including the suggestions that I have towards the end of this training, that will give you a better idea of where you stand as far as like your technological capabilities around whatever you're trying to do. This one is fundraising specific, and it's connecting with donors on their terms, not yours, right? So we are currently in a generational shift, as a country, and we are on the precipice of one of the largest wealth transfers, in human history. So as, the older generation, um, retires and passes on, and they pass along their wealth to millennials, Gen Z folks, there is going to be a lot of money that is transferred. So if you are maybe a legacy organization that has built up a donor base a long time of like older, more senior folks, when that money transfers to younger people, the method of engagement is not necessarily going to be the same. So your methods that were tried and true before may not work now. So if you are used to throwing a gala, and you have a lot of folks who are maybe more senior in their careers and love those type of events, that may work in 2020, 2021, 2022, right? 2023. By 2030, is that going to still be an effective strategy to grab where the wealth is now, which will be with a younger generation? Are they going to respond to that same thing, right? So you want to plan this out and be ahead of the curve when you have knowledge and data about your donor base. If you're doing, phone banking, which is, a traditionally very popular way of bringing in money, or direct mail letters, is that going to respond with younger generations, or do you need to pivot to social media? Or even what social media apps you use can also have a demographic and generational shift, right? So thinking with intention about who you want to reach currently and who you want to reach in the future, so you're well set up to be able to make those advancements, and ensure that your donor base sticks with you as it evolves. The next thing from a fundraising standpoint is, technology gives us the ability to be as accessible as possible. So one of the things that's most important, especially if you're doing digital fundraising, is you want to lower the steps that a person has to take to give. Once someone has made the decision to click on your donation page, they should be able to give in, any way that makes it easy for them. The more clicking through that they have to do, or doing money transfers because you don't accept a certain type of fund, raising platform or card information or et cetera, the less likely that they are to give, right? So we want to make sure that it's as easy as possible, and democratize the opportunity to give to your organization. So that can mean many different things, whether I think it's still up in the air with a lot of groups, but like for instance, some organizations accept cryptocurrency as gifts. Some do not. You can make that own internal choice for yourself, but that's just an example. Other forms would be, maybe folks don't want to put their card information in. Are you able to donate through Apple Pay, through PayPal, things like that? Um, these are all things that, can create ease of giving, and make sure that you can stay plugged in with folks who maybe don't want to sit and type in all of their card information on a website. And there's a number of reasons for why folks may not want to do that, which we can get into if people have questions about that. And yeah, ultimately, investment in tech tools, especially around fundraising, will back up our decision making because we'll have more data on our donor base, on our effectiveness, and our ability to fundraise. We also, again, want to prevent against the brain drain that we were talking about earlier. So through these investments, what we can do is create standard operating procedures or SOPs, which explain exactly how these processes are supposed to run. So Amelia, when you set up that new CRM, right? You don't want you to just be the only person who knows how to use it, because what if you change jobs in 2 years? Now the org still, you went through all that work and now no one can run the database, right? So we want to be able to democratize information, not saying that everybody needs to do it, or even needs to be trained immediately on how to do it, but the information is at least there for folks to be able to continue the work, with a relative sense of like, this is the standard level of work that we do and how we engage with this tech system and what it does. So like, for instance, say it's gift processing, right? And you have a standard of within 48 hours of any donation, that donor receives a donor acknowledgement letter, right? So your steps in that might involve a couple different technological systems. You might have an online giving platform on your website that shoots you an email whenever a donation is made. That information then has to go into your database, say in Salesforce, et cetera, and then there is a system in Salesforce that someone needs to type in a couple different things to get to a report that will print out or create a PDF donation acknowledgement letter, and that letter is either automated or manually sent from an email, right? And there's a ton more steps that are involved in that just to get out donor letters on time. But you have to have that information ready so that when that person walks in, not only do they know this is what is expected of me in this role, but this is how I do it. And if I ever forget how to do it, I have a tool that I can fall back on. Any questions around that part?
Hi all. This is Ashley, and I'm sorry. I just wanted to say I'm sorry I was late to join, but just wanted to introduce myself really fast, and no questions on that part.
Welcome, Ashley. No worries on being late. It is the Friday after like the Thanksgiving and Giving Tuesday rush. I feel like everyone is is a little squirrely today, so it's all good. We're very happy to have you here. Right. Well, if no other notes, let's talk about the legs of the stool, and we'll go into a little bit more of a deep dive of some of the things you should be thinking about as a fundraiser, and what systems you need to set up and what tools you need to have to be able to do this work effectively. And I want to reiterate that these slides are going to be available and sent around to you, as well as this recording. So please feel free to, if I'm going a little fast for your notes or you hear something and want me to repeat, happy to do so, but you'll also get this information again once we're done. The first thing that we need to think about as fundraisers is, how do we solicit and process gifts, right? Especially in a digital space and in this digital age. So there are a couple different components that I think will go into this that will inform your decision making on what tools you would want to invest in. The first thing is an online giving portal. So what I mean by that is a tool, website, whatever the case is. If you ever, I'm sure all of your websites have a button that you click on that allows people to give to you, right? The online giving portal and the gift processing portal are very oftentimes the same thing, but what I want to reiterate is that not all gift processing tools um, are always fully encompassing, right? So here I have a bunch of different ways that folks are able to give potentially, right? And so you may have an online giving portal on your website, like a donation button that would allow you to do, maybe grassroots and major donors, but you don't have an option for someone to set up a recurring gift or to do like a cryptocurrency gift, right? So then you would need to find another gift processing tool on top of that giving portal that allows for that capability if that's what you want to do. So again, a couple of the major ways that folks do individual or independent revenue generation would be, first, grassroots donors. So we're talking about small dollar donors, whatever that means to your organization level wise. Major donors, so individuals who want to give. A caveat that I will put on major donors is, oftentimes, depending on the size of your organization, if you're dealing with folks who have high levels of wealth, direct monetary support is not the only way that these folks will want to give. Some folks may want to do an ACH or a wire transfer. Some will ask if you can accept stock as a donation, right? So having a brokerage account for your organization where you're able to accept stock and have processes behind that. Some will have in-kind donations. I know organizations who have received, art, for instance, that holds a particular value and have to be able to process that gift, right? So it's not just dollars we're talking about, especially when it comes to major donors. Recurring donors, the thing that you want to think about is the automation of the process, right? So what you would want is for me as an individual, when I log in to Progressive Multiplier fund and I see that donation button and I hit that and I want to donate $100 a month, I only have button once. The gift should be automatically recurring and be managed autonomously. You don't want the donor to have to go back and do it every single month. So look for recurring donor programs or gift processing tools that allow for that capability. As we said before, with alternative currency, whether you're talking about Bitcoin or any other form of cryptocurrency, there are some organizations that do that. There is platforms like the Giving Block that allow people to give cryptocurrencies and make those type of donations. So that's a potential availability for you. Planned giving, there are organizations that can help you set up if you would like to talk about it. Happy to provide some resources. I can't remember whether I have one of them on the list because it's so encompassing, but that can help you with bequeaths. So when folks are writing their wills, helping them get set up to write their wills in easy ways, but also for your organization to be put into their will. That is another major form of giving. talk about this wealth transfer that's going to happen. And so I know a lot of organizations are trying to pivot into figuring out how best to engage with that potential windfall from that wealth transfer. Peer-to-peer giving is another one, like whether that's someone say you want folks to run in marathons for you and raise money, like how they do for like St. Jude or a hospital or something like that, right? Does your online giving portal have the ability to do that, or do you need a separate gift processing tool that will allow for peer-to-peer giving or things of that nature? Even with younger generations, I have an organization that I work with currently that brings in over $750,000 a year through charity streams. So folks who stream playing video games or playing music on Twitch, the platform, or YouTube, and they raise money on charity. That is an emerging space for fundraising. So there are a number of platforms that you can use to engage with that space. The final one I have here, and there are more on top of this, but didn't want to, over exhaust the list, is merchandise. So if you are running a merch shop, say, I have a Progressive Multiplier hoodie line and t-shirts with our logo on it. How do I get orders fulfilled on that, right? That would probably be a separate tool than our online giving portal, where I have a shop on our website. I can go there, I can pick a one size fits all white beanie with a red XL hoodie, right? And then get that processed and shipped to me. I still make money. It's still a gift. We're still raising money for the organization, but the technology needed to be able to pull off all of that, whether it's the creation of the merch, the storage of it, the actual gift fulfillment, is probably different than your online giving portal. So again, depending on how robust you want to be with your giving, the more tools you will need to do so. And then finally, the last part of solicitation and processing is donor acknowledgement. So those donor letters, if you're going to individual donors and just writing an acknowledgement for their gift, are you doing that manually? Are you automating that? And if you are automating that, does that speak from your giving portal, or does that speak from your database? Who is in charge of that? Who has that capability, and how does your organization engage with that? Any questions around the solicitation and processing tools, any of the distinctions before we hop into the next section?
I have a question around the merch part.
Sure.
We are fiscally sponsored, so like even for end of year, we were thinking about having merch or just different products out there. And our fiscal sponsor was very like we had a meeting and they went over like all the tax implications of that, and that like if we had sales that exceeded a certain amount, we would have to fill out like extra forms, and that they also like it would go even beyond like the scope of work that they do. So so we decided to not do that this year, but just like, would you have more insight, like especially if that merch sales happens on like a separate website than like the fundraising portal, how would that work?
Yeah, for sure. So if you're fiscally sponsored, the thing that's going to happen is it's kind of a question for your fiscal sponsor's bank account, right? So each one of their situations is different because of you technically, as far as the IRS is concerned, your organization doesn't exist. You are a program of a larger organization, right? So the finances of your organization are really wrapped up in the finances of not only the fiscal sponsor, but if they fiscally sponsor any other programs as well. So it becomes a little bit more tricky and nuanced. So for instance, if you do a merch line, right, and y'all knock it out of the park and do tens of thousands in sales, and then other, like say they fiscally sponsor a bunch of other groups, right? And they're like, oh, like that's really cool. We want to do one too. They may do it, but not do so great, right? Technically that is all under your fiscal sponsor's bank account, right? So the IRS in and of itself may not necessarily, until like going deep in the audit, like look at the difference between it. So it may make the organization susceptible to business tax, right? Because maybe you cross a certain threshold or there's some financial implications. What makes it difficult then is like, how does that business tax get applied, right? Is that applied to you because your sales are the most, right? But then that might be taking extra money out of money that you raised, as compared to like, it could have been another organization that actually triggered the business tax, which then relates to your actual income as an organization. You see what I mean? It's just like really tricky financially when you're fiscally sponsored. So that's probably where a lot of the hesitation in and of itself lies. You can, and many organizations do merch lines. They're a great way to build visibility and to build togetherness as an organization. And as long as you can demonstrate that it's for a social good, you should be able to be tax exempt. So what many organizations or groups do around stuff like that is they will deliberately discount the whether it's a fee for service, merch, whatever, right? So say on the open market, a t-shirt goes for $50, right? Graphic design t-shirt. If you sell your graphic design t-shirt for $40, right, you're still raising money, but then you can point to that with the IRS and say, we are selling deliberately below market rate because we are not trying to make a profit. We are trying to resource our work, right? And that's like kind of the argument you would make. There are some cases where you would, maybe if you sell to like a lot of stuff or you sell at market rate, that you would be susceptible to a business tax, but that would not affect your nonprofit standing. And in some ways, depending on how much money you make, it could actually be worthwhile for you to have that arm do that. So there are kind of a bunch of different ways that you can kind of do some workarounds with that. But I would suggest if your fiscal sponsor isn't like willing to really engage with that for the kind of, I guess, the messiness, I guess you would say, of the financial picture. If you ever become your own C3 or C4, you definitely can and should engage in that if that's something that you want to do. I would just check with a nonprofit tax professional.
Yeah, and we are in the process of becoming our own 501c3. Just we're getting to a point where like there's just so many roadblocks being fiscally sponsored.
Yeah. I have a fiscally sponsored project, and I've been going through some incredibly frustrating roadblocks the past 3 months. So totally feel your pain.
Thank you for the answer.
No problem. Anything else? Okay, I'll keep going then. So we have dollars in the door now, and we have donors. So the next step in the tools and systems that we want is to be able to track and steward these folks, right? We want to be able to know who they are, where they live, how much they've given in the past, how to contact them, so that we're able to get more gifts from them and also hopefully increase the level of giving over time. The main tool that you're gonna want for this is a client relationship management or CRM tool. So this is what Amelia was referring to before. Essentially a database. They are very specific. There are some that are built for-profit organizations, but there are a number of them that are built for nonprofit organizations. We'll go over a couple examples like later on in the deck, But this is the basis of where you as a fundraiser are going to pull all of your information from. So my advice when you pick a CRM is pick for the short term and the medium term. You want your tool to be accessible and usable for you, right? They can be incredibly robust and can do all sorts of segmented things, XYZ. But if you're at a point where literally you just had a Google sheet like 3 months ago, you don't need necessarily all the bells and whistles right now. You need to develop the practice and the regimen of collecting data, storing data, and being able to analyze that data. And so I think oftentimes what groups make, the mistake that groups make is they'll go for the biggest and best CRM off rip when they don't have the internal knowledge or even the need to do something like that, get incredibly frustrated with how nuanced it has to be to do all the things that the person who sold that CRM to you told you it can do, and then you don't use it well or don't use it at all. And then once you have bad data, it's even worse than having no data, because then it's almost impossible to clean up and reverse. So my advice is to be really intentional about the CRMs that you choose. The great thing about CRM sales companies is that they're thirsty. They will set you up with a playground to play around in so you can be used to it. They will give you demos. They will go through walkthrough calls with you. So take advantage of that. I would say meet with as many groups as you want to or can before you make that decision, because it is a big financial investment and time investment in the future for your organization. So you want to make sure you're picking the right one for you. In addition to CRMs, there are other tools, stewardship management tools, where you can do like tracking. You can make like stewardship calendars for specific donors or specific groups of donors to be able to kind of project manage your interactions with folks. I would say that is a lot more secondary or auxiliary. So you can use them in tandem with a CRM, but I wouldn't necessarily invest in a stewardship management tool by itself. They will need like some data to pull from for you to really get the most bang for your buck. And then the last part of this, if you are in a smaller shop, this may also fall with you too. But if you are in a larger organization, this may have already been picked out, but a financial tracking and budgeting tool. So whether your finance team has a particular system that they use, you may not use their system if you are in one of those shops where development and finance are separate. But what I would say is, if finance has already got their system and they're wedded to that system, try and when you're picking your CRM, ask the salesperson if it's compliable with that finance system. Oftentimes, these systems can speak to each other to make data integration a lot more seamless. The last thing you want is like for you to pick a CRM, get really excited about it, and every time you have to do reconciliations, you're pulling manual reports and it ends up sucking up a lot of your time. So if these databases can speak to each other, that's the best case scenario. And I saw a couple folks come off mute for this section, so happy to answer some questions. Kirsten?
So it sounds like maybe we need to schedule a session for, so you already have a CRM, it's very expensive and not doing what you need it to do. Because when you work in organizations that have multiple functions, like things may be really excellent and well hewn for other functions within the organization. But if they're not fundraising forward and you are finding yourself doing so much of that work manually, and you're with a large CRM who already has you locked into a 5-year contract, let's just say, for argument's sake, what I'm trying to think of, like, what would be a good tool for sitting down and figuring out how to calculate the human hours and functionality versus investing in some of these other tools that could improve the functionality.
Yeah, I think that that's really like a math equation, right? So what you
Yeah.
would need to do is you have your cost of the CRM in and of itself, right? You have I would ask, if I don't know how many folks are on your staff or who engages with that CRM from the development team.
Well, there's a development person, and then there's the entire team uses it. I mean, we don't have to do a lot of personal thing, but I'm trying to, as I'm, trying to move the chess pieces and figure out how do we get this to be more functional. I've been here, 2+ years, and what I need to figure out, like, let's say you have 15,000 constituents in your system, but only 350 of them are donors.
Mhm.
Those are things that, like, we're trying to figure out how much to do manually and is it worth it, and we keep being approached over and over again, and that's the challenge. And I feel for all of the smaller organizations, it's like if they make these investments, how do we, like, what are support tools that we as development people can share with each other for how to make what we have either work better for us, and also how we can potentially collaborate on systems for helping folks who are looking at my biggest fear listening to some of the other small is that some of these folks who really need help, who know they're ready to make some sort of CRM investment. So many of my nonprofit partner friends have invested in systems that, sold them a really great sounding platform, provided them with tremendous support for starting it, but then, like, the sticky wicket of the data management part of it and having it all communicate seems to be this consistent complaint throughout our industry. Sorry. So
Yeah, no, I started in this work as like doing data work in Razor's Edge. So very familiar with like the pains of data management. Like I really don't think like any of these programs in and of themselves are perfect, or there's like one that like stands super above the rest. I think they all have their own pros and cons. What I would suggest is, again, well, starting with like what you were saying first, like getting a sense of like what the true cost of this is, right? I would try and think through how much time do your team spend in this database, reporting on this database, and doing like manual work. So like for yourself, and then, that's opportunity cost. You get paid a salary or a wage, right? Add that up. If it's 2-3 hours a week or whatever the case is, it could be up to 10. That has a cost. And then you can add that on top of the cost of the actual database. And then if you can do some research and find like, what are some trainings that would maybe make this easier or whatever the case is, add that as well. So all in all, the year cost would be like all the time that you wasted on doing it manually, the cost of the program, and then the cost it would take to rectify this, because those hours that you're going to spend are going to continue unless you change or you figure out a different way to do that, right? And then that'll give you a dirty math version of like what the true cost of that investment is. I think for your other point, a lot of the reason I think that these systems fall down are that organizations are all different and we have different needs and uses, but the things that they sell us on are like the commonalities between all organizations, right? And so what I suggest is whenever you sign up for a CRM, normally you're given like some sort of program officer contact there, whatever. Reach out to them and tell them the exact problems that you're having trouble with and ask them. Oftentimes, a lot of them, especially the larger ones, you're talking your Salesforces, Razor's Edge, whatever, they not only do regular training programs where they're like, oh, we can get you, like, here's a class that we do on that, and normally they'll be free or have like some severe discount because you are paying for the platform, or I would reach out and be like, I have this very specific custom problem. Can you help me or put me in touch with someone who can help you? Like, that's technically their job. Whoever onboarded you onto the platform. But oftentimes folks don't reach back out to them after that onboarding process. So if you have any contacts over there, I would suggest just emailing and be like, who is my like account person at XYZ CRM? And then get in touch with that person, tell them the issues that you're having. Because again, it may be also like a compatibility issue. Maybe they didn't set up your systems right, or maybe your work has evolved and you need to like switch how you're using the system, and they can help you with that because they don't want to lose your sale, period. So they're going to go above and beyond to make sure you stick with them. So I would suggest that be like your next step of action.
And we're consistently provided with the opportunity to purchase consulting time or the opportunity to purchase tools from third-party vendors who are partners of the large organization. And I bet you know which organization I'm talking about when I say that's often the opportunity. So thank you for taking some time to help me think it out, and I hope it's helpful to other people. And what I would say is, though, if it sounds amazing, make them spend time with you. I didn't make this purchase. I came into it already existing at the organization, and there wasn't a development person at the time. So the other functionalities are what they are. But yeah, with your team, really sit down and play with it, as Kafila was saying, like in a sandbox that they set up for you to practice and find the glitches.
Thank
Have
you.
a hot list for your top CRMs that you might recommend.
You're asking me for CRMs that I might recommend.
No.
So we'll go a couple slides after this section. I have like a list of resources that I pulled together of I think orgs that are at least industry standard or reputable for a bunch of these different categories. And happy to answer any questions about that a little bit later on. Is that cool?
Totally. Thank you.
Great. Anyone else? Okay. Let's keep going then. So the last group of tools that we are going to need to think about for a specific purpose are internal and external data collection, storytelling, and communications. So oftentimes, like as fundraisers, people only think about like the money part of the work that we do, but like we need to be able to tell a story to get that money, which means we need information, right? So our CRM tool is again here in the comm side, because this is going to tell us who we're talking to. And depending on the data that we can gather, that will inform what kind of stories we want to tell, because we want to know what folks are interested in, how much information we have on them. Digital media tools are something that, like, especially in this digital age, you're going to need to invest in, making all of your materials look good, sound good, that type of things, having some sort of brand awareness, social media platforms and tools to use them. I think that kind of goes without saying. Metrics tracking database and tool. So this is not necessarily fundraising managed or focused, but it is going to be incredibly integral to your work. If your organization cannot track the actual impact that it's having through measurables and deliverables, you're going to have a very hard time convincing foundations to invest in your work, and you're going to have a hard time convincing individuals to invest in your work because they don't know where their money is going, right? You have to be able to measure wins and show impact, and that continued investment is worthwhile. So that's something that I wanted to include in here to make sure that, like, if you all don't manage it, make sure you're talking with whoever your program or ED is to make sure that you have a great way of being able to get that information when you need it. That's a worthwhile investment, in my opinion. And then email tool, most common form of digital outreach, but making sure that you have a tool that can do mass emails, do newsletters, do segmented lists, that type of thing gives you analytics and information on your open rate, click-through rate, all that good stuff. So you're able to make informed decisions on your messaging. Any questions about the comm side of the tools before we get into the suggestions? I want to make sure that I'm leaving some space to answer some questions at the end. Nope, we good? Okay.
Actually, just
Yeah,
really
go ahead,
quickly,
Ashley.
sorry about that. I'm always
Go ahead.
curious about recommendations or examples of software that folks use for the metrics tracking.
So I'm gonna go into that right
Perfect.
now.
Okay.
So lo and behold, suggestions and tools.
I just you planted me there to be your seed, right?
These are going to be based on the things that we talked about earlier, some suggestions on platforms that I've seen that have worked really well for groups in the field. Granted, there are some nuances to some of these. Some of these tools are really like kind of open, I would say open source if you're familiar with the concept, in the sense of you can kind of do anything with them. And so you have to really tailor them to your needs. But let's just go over, give a brief overview of some stuff that I've seen that I think is like really good. Pick and choose what you would like. And again, gonna be sending out the slide deck and the recording. So don't feel like you have to write all of these down right now. You'll get all this information. So give processing. Classy, I have been working with a lot lately. I think it's really, really great. Highly recommend them. You can make custom campaigns, can do recurring giving, individual giving, major giving, however you would like to. Bloomerang is another one that's very popular. Um, Same type of situation. I haven't personally used it, but I know a lot of orgs that do. PayPal Giving Fund, a lot of corporate gifts they will do through PayPal Giving Fund. So check them out, see how you sign up for them. Donor Box, a little bit more bare bones than Classy and Bloomerang, but still good. Network for Good, probably the most bare bones one. Looks very, how do I say this? Early 2000s internet. Let's put it that way. Functionality is great, not the prettiest site, but definitely feel free to check them out. Fundly is similar to Classy, like a lot more robust. You can run specific campaigns. Know a lot of groups that do well on there, so you can check them out. One Cause, I've seen a couple. I think they're more new. So I've seen a bunch of groups use One Cause, but I would say of this list, probably the least popular because I think it's the newest one. And then Bonfire, I put on this list. Beliza, this Bonfire is specifically for merchandise. So they can run an entire merch campaign for you. You can put up your design, they'll make the shirt, they'll process, they'll do the gift processing, and then they'll send you a check. And that might be the easiest way for you to do it. So I would suggest, like, they'll either send you a check or they'll direct deposit into your account. So I would suggest maybe reaching out to them if you're still on board with the merch idea, and see how it would work with the fiscal sponsorship. That might be your best bet. So donor strategy stuff. Salesforce is like the behemoth in the industry. They are super open. So my organization's Salesforce 9 times out of 10 will not look like your organization's Salesforce. You can set them up kind of however you want, but what that does is it lures a lot of groups into creating Salesforces, and they don't really work the way that they want them to because they don't have the knowledge to make them work the way that they want them to. And they require a high level of knowledge to be able to adjust and fix, because chances are the person who is fixing it is not the person who set it up, right? And so they have to get used to your system. So it can be a little bit expensive on the editing end. So I would say I would go Salesforce if you are a big org, have a lot of data, have data people dedicated on staff, like a tech department or an IT department, who can help manage that, because it can be a beast. HubSpot is, if you are an organization who does things like around deals, if you have an inherent fee for service, things of that nature, HubSpot might be a great space for you. Yeah, they're a little bit more for-profit focused, but can do a lot of nonprofit stuff. Have been working with that. Mhm.
Does that apply to like shared funding?
Yeah, you can. So
Allow like shared government
HubSpot's
contracts?
situation is they are kind of deal focused. So you can make a deal. So like say there was a grant from Progressive Multiplier that you sub granted out or shared, right? You can put all that like sub information in like smaller files that all link to that one. So it may be something that would potentially work for your style of information tracking. I think Razor's Edge is the quintessential donor platform. It is what I was raised on. It's what I know best. So I am slightly biased towards it because that's the one I feel most comfortable in. By no means perfect. Can be a total headache if you don't know what you're doing. But they, I think, provide a good balance between robust customness, but also some set templates, because it's actually made solely for nonprofits. Salesforce also has a big for-profit arm to it. So Razor's Edge is solely nonprofit, and they also have a budget tool attached to it. I should have included that. I think it's called Financial Edge or something like that. So if you want to have two systems that talk to each other with really good integration, Razor's Edge is definitely one that you could use. Donor Perfect is good. Network for Good has like a really bare bones CRM tool. I just included it because if you're going to use Network for Good for your gift processing, it may make sense to just have them speak together. As far as budgeting, you can ask your finance team, or if you are also your finance team, QuickBooks tends to be like industry standard. Again, the QuickBooks is like, the behemoth in the field. They have a nonprofit specific section of QuickBooks now, but finances tend to be finances. So, you can kind of use for-profit companies if you want to here. Springly and Arise, I think, is how it's pronounced, are also both budget tools that I've seen a lot of organizations use. But yeah, industry standard, I would say, is QuickBooks probably. And then for comms tools, Canva is definitely industry standard for digital assets. So if you're not familiar with Canva, they have templates for damn near anything in any size and format. You do not need to be a graphic artist to be good at Canva. You just have to know how to click things pretty much. And now they have integrated AI in Canva where you can, I think, provide prompts, and it will give you based on your prompts an idea of how you would want, like, I could say create a newsletter for this with this logo, whatever, blah blah blah, and they'll do it. I do not suggest using AI ever as a finished product. If you're going to use it as a starting point, to make sure you have eyes on it and you don't do anything wrong or miss anything that a computer did. Please, please, please do not do that. Hootsuite is a great social media tool. You can plan out posts and interact with all of your platforms from one place, which is really cool. It's a good like overarching thing so you can manage, especially if you're doing like say an end of year campaign and you want to schedule your posts on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, whatever, you can do it all through there. Notion is a digital assets and social media tool. It's kind of like again, one of those open table kind of things, open source things where you can make custom things to track whatever you want. Monday.com can be a social media management tool. You can use Monday.com to project manage damn near anything. I've used it for about 7 years now. Pretty robust, similar to like kind of like a Asana type of vibe. But if you're familiar with that, but you can do that. MailChimp and Constant Contact are our two industry standards for email. They allow pretty much the same functionality. I think the only difference is the amount of people you talk to increases the price of the platform. And I think they both have a free component, if I remember correctly. So if you're not emailing that many people in batches, check them out. You might be able to do it for free. Airtable and Jotform are the two metrics tracking tools that I think are the easiest for a fundraising department to introduce to a programming department because they're relatively easy to use and don't take a huge lift. And B, chances are your programming is not going to appreciate you forcing work on them. So you want to have something that they can just plug and play with and that they can actually see the value in as well. And that you can just check in on it. So you don't want to do something that's too robust for them. Sorry I sped through that, but because I wanted to leave 8 minutes for any additional questions. Happy to go back to slides, answer other questions, give my feedback or thoughts.
Do you have any experience with broad stripes?
I don't. I've heard of them before, but I have not worked with it. Is that what you're thinking of?
It's a database kind of CRM that is more often used in policy and like coalition spaces. So I don't know. Yeah, just curious.
Yeah, no, I haven't worked with them in particular, but would be eager to learn some more about that. And if you want to, again, set up any of that individual time with myself or another member of our team, like I can put the link in the chat now. Actually, I'll stop sharing my screen so I can do that. But also 2 weeks. The next fundraising Friday is going to be on power and race dynamics and philanthropy. I will be running that training as well. Would love to see you all there. It's going to be a really good and interesting one. But I will get you those links in the chat right now. Any other questions?
No, just gratitude. This is really helpful. And yeah, would love to like get your lens on sort of like our level of systems and where we can scale up. I feel like we're at like an influx point. So I'll sign up and your next session sounds great. Thank you.
All right. Thanks so much. Hi, Ashley. I saw you just came off.
No,
Yeah.
no question, immediate questions for me. I'm always curious to hear if folks have experience working with any of the recommended solutions, but just wanted to extend my gratitude as well for this session.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate you joining. Kirsten?
I'm grateful. I'm looking forward to the resources, and I love that we have the opportunity to share the YouTube video with collaborators and colleagues. So thank you.
All right. No problem.
And nice job. That was a great list. I noticed Blackbaud wasn't on there. I'm not saying anything.
So Blackbaud owns Razor's Edge.
I know, but
That's
I'm
the
using Altru and I'm
hmm
anyway, my hair has gotten significantly grayer this past year.
Well,
So
like
that was
I said,
neither nor an endorsement, nor was it a negative statement. Take from it what you will, folks.
well, I would
I love
suggest,
Razor's Edge. It's super easy and intuitive. So
yeah, if you want, I would suggest signing up for those sessions because I have, like I said, I have a lot of experience in RE, and I think Polly does as well. So
yeah, oh yeah, and so did I thought.
well, then never mind. It might be beyond me.
Well, thanks a lot. I hope everybody has a great weekend.
Thanks, Kirsten.
I'm gonna bounce to a marketing.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Take
take care,
Bye.
folks.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
And I'm sorry, what's your name?
Yeah, sure, Kafili.
Havili. Nice to meet you. Thank you so
Nice to
much.
meet you as well.
If
All right, thank you.
if I find out that I can do coaching, I will do it because but I might have art, like I signed up for somebody else and I'm not sure what our cap is in terms of the resilience initiative, but this is super helpful.
Yeah, I think you have up to 5 hours, so I think you should be good.
Cool. Well, thank you.
All right.
Bye.